All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome to another Black Desert video. So today I wanted to talk about the event going on right now. We have a 1 Marni field tag, so that means you get to experiment with any other tag character you want, copy over all your gear and everything. So what I wanted to do was talk about, 1, how to actually tag your characters, and 2, I wanted to go through a brief overview of all the classes, not necessarily a tier list, because the meta does shift quite often. A lot of balance changes happen, so what I tell you today probably could be different a month from now, and the accuracy and evasion changes literally right around the corner, so it's probably not a good idea to talk about like tier lists and everything, even though I think those are all very opinionated anyway. That's why I don't do them. But anyway, I'm just going to give you a rundown of like all the classes, and this is a good time to experiment with all of them. So anyway, to tag your character right now with the event, you just go to any old moon shop. Every town has them. Buy one of these old Marni unstable fuels, and then you can just tag your character. And then make sure your character is on the same town as you, and then you can copy over all your gear. Make sure to copy over the artifacts as well as your alchemy stone if you have a Vels or whatever, just because it does give you like double the durability, so like you have to have this maxed out and everything. But yeah, overall, very easy to tag. This event kind of comes around maybe 2 or 3 times a year, which is pretty cool, actually. But the main thing I want to talk about is all the classes. So for all of you who have no idea what you want to play, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of them, and not necessarily which one is better than the others, because I always get a lot of questions from people of, hey, what should I play? And my advice to most people is like, okay, so for me to point you in the right direction, what do you like doing? And I assume people come from other MMOs, for example, like, you know, where they have dedicated tanks, healers, supports, and everything. BDO, it's a little bit different, whereas a majority of the classes are DPS, essentially. They do have support roles and like tankier classes than others, but for the most part, it is how you build your character. So everything could be a DPS and everything. But there are classes like Shai, for example, that's more on the support role than anything. And even then, they could do really well in, you know, like offensively as well. So with that said, I'll try to explain every single class. I have played all of them to at least 61. I've done a little bit of grinding on every single class. Obviously, I'm better at, you know, Dark Knight than I am literally everything else, but I do have experience with a few others. So anyway, with that said, let's start off with Dark Knight. So I'm just going to run through all of them very briefly, simply because there's a lot of classes, and I've always said that there always has to be a fine balance between the number of classes and how they're all balanced. And I think what makes Black Desert unique is there's a lot of classes. But with that said, the balance for them in PvP and or PvP kind of wonky. Some classes are significantly better than the others. It is what it is. But anyway, Dark Knight, I would say in PvE, they're pretty solid. So Dark Knights are essentially glass cannon type classes, and if you are a PvPer, you're not going to be like the top damaging class. You're mostly like an assassin type class, and you're basically picking off other people in wars. So like you're out in the distance picking off stragglers, whereas you're not like the main carry of it. So I think Dark Knight, pretty solid overall, and very solid for PvE as well. And I understand that a majority of players who play this game are mostly into PvE and just grinding, and they actually released an infographic, I think, a while ago, like Pearl Abyss did, that there's actually a very small group of people that do PvP in general. So, like, I already knew that. That goes for pretty much every game that I've played, so it is what it is. Woosa. This is actually my second favorite class, and I really enjoyed Woosa ever since they came out with it, just because it's like a mix of lightning and water. It just has big AoEs, so it's very solid grinder. It was actually at the top. It's still very solid for PvE. And usually when there's classes, we all have Awakening and Succession. Well, at least most classes do, right? And I think that it's important to consider whether like a class is good for both of them. Like you can do just fine in Awakening or Succession. Some classes do better in, you know, one spec or the other. I personally think that Succession is better for Woosa, simply because it's just more damage. And then if you're PvEing, you obviously want more damage. PvP is a little bit different. I have tried Awakening. I think it's fine, but Succession just feels more comfortable, and that's a very important thing to keep in mind. Like, yeah, sure, you could play the meta class, but if you're not having fun with it, you might as well just play something you do enjoy. Also, to go back on this one, my Dark Knight. Luckily, Dark Knight, you can actually do both roles, Succession and Awakening, and they both feel fine. So that's one very good thing about the class. If you pick one or the other, it'll be fine. Next, we have Mystic. This is a melee class, and Mystic and Strikers have this passive where you basically take reduced damage against magic classes, and that's what makes them above average. And I personally liked Awakening more. I think the majority of Mystic players play Succession, but when I first started, and I thought that Awakening was really cool because it's oh, you get to play with dragons and all these cool abilities. If you ever watched Dragon Ball, it kind of looks like that essentially, but so does Striker. This one's blue, Striker is red. But anyway, I thought Mystic was a very solid class. It is a solid class, actually. I think one spec is slightly better than the others, but yeah, just play around with both of them. I think Mystic is a very solid class overall. So Witch and Wizard. So these are two different classes, essentially. I understand they separate them, Witch and Wizard. So let me try to explain. So Wizard is essentially water and fire, and I guess a little bit of lightning, whereas Witch is poison and earth, essentially. So I understand that people want to play support classes, and when you think of a caster, you think of, oh, heals, and basically you're the healer. So Witch and Wizard, they both actually have healing abilities and also defensive things that buff your group, which is why for a long time, and I think even still now, casters were always wanted in PvP just because, defensive abilities, big heals, and everything. So I think in a way, if you are exclusively PvPing, they have a very good mobility range, and you can teleport, which is huge, actually. You have some healing. You're not going to be a main healer. You're mostly a DPS, but you do have defensive and support options, which I think are very solid. So that's one thing you can choose between those, and the difference between Wizard and Witch was the type of element you use, essentially. So Kuno and Ninja, aside from male and female, the way you would think of these classes are assassin classes, or I guess if you've played other games like League of Legends, they would be your ADC. You're mostly going to be better in small scale PvP, 1v1s, and just overall dueling more than large scale. Not to say that they can't do it. They just specialize in small scale, essentially. So if you ever wanted to be a ninja, Ninja and Kuno kind of are what they are. One uses shurikens and one uses the kunai, the dagger, essentially. And if you were to pick one, I'm going to be honest with you, Ninja is the way to go. Kuno, they've had a lot of different balances over the year, and people still say it's not great. So if you want to realistically play the more useful one, I say that with quotes because there are some people that play either one and enjoy it. At the end of the day, you play what you enjoy, but Ninja is better than Kuno. It is what it is. Blame Pearl Abyss. I'm just telling you how it is. Lahn. This one is actually a pretty fun class. If you enjoy high mobility and pretty decent range in PvE, it's solid. They do well in PvP, but I think I see more people in PvE just like grinding, and they do solid over there. If you like the pendulum and just doing big AoEs, Lahn is for you. Tamer. Do you like animals? Do you like hailings? And I think they're very solid in small scale PvP, and they're okay-ish to above average grinders. That's just my opinion. I've played it to 61 and that's it. So yeah, if you like having animal companions with you in both PvE and PvP, I think this is going to be a solid. It is a high APM class because you do have to control yourself plus obviously your companion. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Shai. This is probably the closest to support healer you're going to get in this game. They have a lot of buffs for your group and themselves, and they have, like, you know, big offensive and defensive abilities, so they are okay. They're pretty good at grinding, they're very good at life skilling, and you could play them offensively, and I've actually seen pretty funny montages, clips of them. But for the most part, I think the majority of people who play Shai are playing the support role, which is one of the few classes in this game that are more dedicated supports. Nova. This one is tough to pick because there's Succession and then there's Awakening. Awakening is very good. Succession is like, I feel like they wanted to make a tank, but it just feels clunky and it's slow. So I thought Nova was a really fun class. I have played both specs of it, Succession and Awakening. So if you like like mobility and just clearing faster, Nova is a very solid option. Awakening is better than Succession. It is what it is. But yeah, I've played both of them from both Awakening and Succession, and I think it's fine. So next, we talked about Wizard and Witch at the same time before. Valkyrie. This was my first ever class that I made in 2014. And Valkyrie, when I first started, or I guess when you think of a Valkyrie, you think like, oh, tank, right? They are pretty tanky. It's just that it's not a tank, essentially. They have a shield. They're kind of like Novas in a way. Like Valkyries do very strong damage. Their ult, their 100, it does a lot of damage. I've seen like people get one-shotted with that. But yeah, so I do have a little bit of experience with Valkyrie. It's my first ever character that I made. And I guess if you like Valkyries, you're expected to be using like well, let me just show you. These are the kinds of weapons: longsword, shield, and then a lance kind of thing. And yeah, I think they're fun. They're definitely better in PvP. Obviously, every class does well in PvE. Some specialize in others, but I think Valkyries are just overall solid. Sage. Right now, or I guess the past year or two, Sage has been at the top. Awakening and Succession, I think they are both very solid specs. The reason why they're very solid is because they have higher accuracy, and if you have higher gear, you just have more stats overall than the other classes with the same equivalent of gear. Also, they have very large AoEs, so they I think Sage shines in both PvE and PvP at a very solid level. And also, I see more people playing the Awakening than Succession, but I think both of them are very solid. Corsair. How do I put this? I think Corsair was more meant to be like a life skill character when they first released it, because it's like, oh, you're part of the ocean, you get passive boat speed. Yeah, so I do have a Corsair as my current seasonal, and it's fun to play, but a majority of the player base says that Corsairs are not good in PvP or really PvE. But I found it to be okay-ish. Like, the AoE clear speed for PvE is fine. I did play both specs, both Awakening and Succession, and I think PvE was fine. I don't see a lot of them in PvP at all, and I think most people just say it's not great. So it's fun to play. Is it effective? Who knows? So we talked about Ninja with the Kuno before, and it is what it is. Warrior is literally your standard warrior class that you've played every other game with. You have a big sword, you have a shield. I think warriors are actually solid simply because they have a lot of defensive abilities, and like, so in this game they have like Q blocks, S blocks, so like when you're defensive stances, basically warriors are very tanky in my opinion. So like fighting or dueling in like 1v1 or small scale against warriors is very difficult, and they do solid damage as well. Are they unique in any way compared to, like, I don't know, Woosa, Dark Knight? Not really, but they are efficient and tanky. All right, Berserker. As we all know, this is just an overall well-rounded class in terms of everything. I've seen people do well in both Succession and Awakening, both PvP and PvE. I think one of the the biggest streamers that is Choice, who plays Berserker. He does very well. He's mega geared, and so if you want to watch any like Berserker gameplay, Choice is the way to go. And yeah, I think they're all around good, just because they have a high HP pool. That's their passive, and so like when most classes get to 7,000 to 8,000 health, Berserkers will be at 10,000. So if you want like health tanky, Berserkers are the way to go. They have basically permanent stamina and super armor uptime. They're very hard to fight in PvP, and they just have high mobility. PvE, solid. Very annoying to fight against. I think the downside, you know how if you play a Korean MMO, realistically, a lot of people play for like, you know, your character's looks and everything, how well you can like design your character and everything. Berserker, not so much on that route, but you know, everything else stat-wise and meta, very solid. Striker. So Strikers and Mystics are essentially in the same category, but they're also different aside from male and female. So Strikers, they can summon clones of themselves. They do very high damage, to tanky. And I think realistically, if you were to pick one of the two besides Mystic and Striker, most people choose the Striker route just because it's like higher damage and everything. But you know, I think they're both fine in my opinion, realistically. Do you like red or do you like blue? Mystic is blue, Striker is red. They're kind of the same, but they're also not. It's kind of personal preference. I've played both of them, and I like Mystic more just because like the aesthetics, and you know, you get to summon dragons instead of clones that are kind of the same. But I think in terms of performance, both very solid. Striker is probably slightly better. Sorceress, kind of standard from if you played any other game with a sorcerer type class. You use a scythe, you summon dark magic. I have heard, and from my experience playing, Sorceress is a very high APM class. That means you're going to have to press a lot of button combos, and it's very rewarding, very high skill ceiling, but if you're that kind of person, it's high mobility, good damage, rewarding if you do it right, but I don't think it's a beginner-friendly class. Maehwa. So Maehwa and Musa are kind of in the same category as each other because they have a lot of dashes and movement abilities, and they share the same main weapon. So like, you know how like it shows you Musa and Maehwa exclusive weapons, they kind of share the same one. Do you like orange or do you like reddish movement? I think Musa's are slightly better than Maehwa's. They both got a lot of tweaks recently, and I think Musa is just straight up better. But if you like high mobility, they're both very solid grinders PvE wise. I see more Musas in PvP though, but I think once again, just play what you like. And high mobility, pretty decent damage, and yeah, play with the one you like. Okay, so Maegu. So this kind of came out at a near-ish time as the Woosa, because with the Land of the Morning Light, these two are basically sisters in terms of the lore, but they play differently. So this one, if you like having a fox companion, kind of not like the Tamer, but they have like similarities. Very solid in both PvP and PvE, and I think I personally see Succession more than Awakening, but you know, maybe it's just like the kind of PvP I do. I think this is just an overall very solid character. The unique ability for Maegu's is that it summons a clone, and then like it really does look like a 1-to-1 clone, so it distracts people, and then you can use combos and everything and just make it overall better. So I think Maegu is a very solid class just overall, no matter what you're doing. Drakania. This one is, in my opinion, a pretty like high APM class. So basically, Drakania has two stances, like basically fire and lightning. Let's just call it that. In terms of where it's better, I think Drakania is superior in PvP, simply because there's just like it does a lot of damage, high mobility, and it's just compared to others in PvE, you put in more work for the same amount of effort. So that's why people rate it lower on the PvE scale. But in terms of PvP, it just deletes everything, and it has a crazy heal for yourself only, and then basically you just heal from 0 to full, and it's kind of insane actually. I hate how in not just Black Desert, but a lot of games, when you have percentage damage or percentage heals versus a flat number, they have to be very careful. And I think percentage would be a lot better, because some people just straight up stack HP or stack defensive. And so the ability to do a heal based on like, you know, a flat number versus percentage is kind of insane. So like how you build is how you will play. Drakania specializes in PvP. Not to say it's bad in the other roles, but that's where I see it the most. Ranger and Archer. So basically male and female. There's a little bit of a difference between these two. If you've ever... I hate making this comparison, but if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, you will like, and you like that, you'll like Archer. Ranger is a little bit different because it actually does have both Awakening and Succession, whereas Archer is basically a one-spec class. I think it doesn't have a Succession, but it only has Awakening, or like one or the other. It only has one, whereas Ranger has two of them. What is the difference between them? In my opinion, Archer has a higher mobility and bigger AoEs, whereas Ranger has more damage. But I mean, it's still very mobile and everything. But I just think that Rangers are seen more in large-scale PvP, whereas Archers are in smaller scale. So how do you fight in Archer? Basically make them run out of stamina, or you catch them, grab them, CC them, and then you win. Whereas Rangers have more kits or tools to, you know, avoid those kind of situations. All right, Guardian. Guardian is... It's not like Warrior. She has a giant, giant axe. And, yeah, so what do I say about Guardian? If you like low APM classes, Guardian might be for you. Not to say that they're bad. They just have big AoEs. Not really the fastest class, but it's like you press one button, things just get deleted. And they're not like slow, but compared to, I don't know, like a Lahn, for example, they're slow. But Very big AoEs, very high damage, decent amount of tankiness, and yeah, so it's about Guardian. By the way, in case you are curious and you want to see like how every class performs, I do have a season for a lot of classes. I've played basically every single class, so if you want to see how to go about like what it's like or everything, you can watch my videos, or they have a trial character that you could do in game yourself and basically try every single character with a decent gear set and just test everything yourself. These are both my Dark Knights for seasonal. I leave them as boss alts. Hashashin, this one is actually getting buffed in the near future with not necessarily damage, but like accuracy, evasion, and everything. So they're very solid already. They're just getting better in the near future. So what would I describe Hashashin as? Do you like summoning like snakes and tornadoes? Do you like having big AoEs where you just press like 3 buttons and then everything just gets deleted? Hashashin is the way to go. High mobility, big AoEs, solid damage. I think this class, Hashashin, has a little bit of a learning curve to it, but I think overall it's a very rewarding class. And I think it's fun, actually. Like, I enjoyed playing it when I did. So what else is there? Scholar. This is actually the newest class currently. Scholar, when you think of that, you think of like, oh, knowledge and, you know, everything. She has a big hammer. The AoE is solid. Admittedly, this is the class that I have the least experience on, simply because it's the newest one as well. So basically the weapons, you have big hammer, big AoEs. I know it sounds like Guardian, but it's not. It has a little bit more mobility. I don't really know what to say about this class. I don't have as much experience with it, but yeah, hopefully like I categorized everything. A lot of these are pretty straightforward. Like, for example, Witch and Wizard, they're casters, so is Sorceress. Berserkers, Warriors, Melee. I hopefully explained which ones are the tankier classes, your ADCs, your Assassins, kind of thing. So, yeah, with that said, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, happy to answer them and point you in the right direction. So if you still don't know what class you want to play, drop in the comments. Maybe I can help you, point you in the right direction, or maybe other people can as well. Join the Discord if you have any other questions, or you just want to see my guides and other videos on like every other class that I've played. So yeah, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you come back. We post videos almost daily, and we have a lot of guides to do, a lot of updates for whether you're a beginner, a returning player, or someone who's just looking to get better at this game. I have hopefully a video for you. And yeah, so with that said, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.